Hello, I'm David Chaston with 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz. This week, get everything you need to know in 90 seconds at 9 o'clock, with news of a flurry of big data releases. First up, the June data for personal income and spending in the US is out, holding no surprises though. Both increased by the same rate as for May. The rises have been driven by a strong service sector. The Fed's preferred measure of inflation is in here, and that also held unchanged at just over 2%. The Federal Reserve is expected to keep interest rates unchanged tomorrow, but solid economic growth combined with rising inflation are likely to keep it on track for another 2 hikes this year. In Canada, their May GDP reading, yes, they report that monthly, recorded an uptick, rising to 2.6%, beating both the April level and analysts' expectations. That should lift their second quarter growth rate to almost 3%, roughly double what they've had over the past year. Mining is driving their growth. In Mexico, their second quarter growth rate has been released overnight and is at 2.7%, higher than the same period a year ago. It's slightly lower than expected, however. And the newly elected president of Mexico said he will take a pay cut, taking his $235,000 salary down to less than $120,000. The EU also released GDP growth data for the second quarter, and that shows a 2.1% rise, lower than expected and sharply lower than the first quarter of 2018. Lower exports trimmed this result. Also released was July inflation data, and that came in slightly higher at 2.1%. Meanwhile, the IMF has delivered a glum review of Greece's economy and its prospects following years of austerity. In China, their official factory PMI has slipped to a 5-month low in July, and now below the average over the past year. Their senior leadership are acknowledging they face external challenges to growth and stability. They're trying to shift strategy that de-emphasises trade with the US. In Japan's central bank review of their monetary policy settings came and went with no changes, somewhat surprising markets. The US Treasury 10-year yield is holding at 2.96%. Their 210 curve is still at 30 basis points. The Chinese 10-year is at 3.53, down 1 basis point from this time yesterday, while the New Zealand equivalent is now at 2.79%, up 3 basis points. And gold is up $2 at $1,224 in New York. US oil prices have fallen back today after yesterday's jump and now just over $68.50 a barrel. The Brent benchmark is just over $74 a barrel. And the Kiwi dollar will open today at 68.2 US cents, very similar to the level this time yesterday. On the cross rates, we're lower, however, at 91.7 Aussie cents following yesterday's poor business confidence result. And we're at 58.3 euro cents. That puts the TWI at 71.6. I'm David Chaston. That was 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz.